Happy Halloween, Quickcasters! Getting ready for a spooky one.
You bet.
We're diving deep into true crime tonight. But there's a twist.
Ooh, a twist.
Yeah. We're looking at how some of the most horrific crimes actually led to some pretty positive changes in our legal system.
It's like finding a silver lining in the darkest of clouds.
Right. So if you're ready for that, hit subscribe, light a spooky candle, and let's explore how darkness can spark some light.
I love that.
All right, let's unpack our first case. We're going back to New York City in the 1970s.
Oh, the gritty streets.
Yeah. When a shadow of fear was everywhere, the son of Sam.
David Berkowitz, who called himself Son of Sam, terrorized the city with a string of shootings, leaving a trail of victims.
Like straight out of a horror movie.
Totally.
But how did this case, as terrifying as it was, lead to a change in the law?
So as the case went on, there was this growing concern that Berkowitz might try to profit from his crimes, like selling his story maybe through book deals or movie rights.
Ugh, the victim's family seeing that.
Right, seeing him profit from their pain.
So to prevent that, they made Son of Sam laws?
Exactly. These laws aim to prevent criminals from, well, profiting off of their crimes.
Makes sense to me.
The idea is to ensure that any money made from telling their stories goes to the victims or their families.
Justice for the victims should always come first.
Right.
But I bet there have been challenges to these laws.
Oh yeah, you bet. Freedom of speech is the big one. Some argue that restricting a criminal's ability to tell their story infringes on their First Amendment rights.
Yeah, even for profit.
Right. It's a thorny issue, balancing individual rights with protecting victims.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It is.
Okay, Quickcasters, we're moving on to the next case. This time we're focusing on two hate crimes. The murders of Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr.
In 1998, these killings forced America to confront, well, prejudice and bigotry.
Yeah, this was huge.
It was. Matthew Shepard, a gay university student, was brutally beaten, and James Byrd Jr., a black man, was dragged to death behind a pickup truck.
These cases were absolute turning points.
Turning points for sure.
In how we address hate crimes. Right. So how did these cases actually impact the legal system?
They led to the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, signed into law in 2009.
Wow, 2009.
Yeah. This expanded the federal definition of hate crimes to include crimes motivated by gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability.
So before this, hate crime laws only focused on race, religion, and ethnicity.
Pretty much.
This expansion finally recognized that, well, hate can be directed at anyone who's different.
That's right. And it gave law enforcement more tools to prosecute these crimes.
All right, Quickcasters, buckle up. Our next case had a huge impact on the way we deal with repeat offenders. It's the story of Polly Claus.
Oh yeah, 12 years old, abducted from a slumber party in California back in 1993.
And tragically murdered. I remember this one. This is one of those cases that, well, every parent remembers.
It really ignited a firestorm of fear and anger.
Especially because of how the perpetrator acted at the trial. People wanted a way to keep repeat offenders off the streets, for good.
Especially those who commit violent crimes.
Right.
So it really became a driving force behind the push for 3 strikes laws.
Okay, so these laws impose harsher sentences, including life imprisonment on people convicted of a third serious felony.
You got it.
It's controversial, though.
For sure. Some argue that it's too harsh.
Especially for nonviolent crimes. Like, imagine someone getting life in prison for shoplifting.
I know.
It just doesn't seem right.
You've hit on the core of the debate.
Yeah.
Critics say they lead to really long sentences and that they don't actually deter crime.
Proponents, though, say they keep dangerous criminals off the streets and that it gives a sense of justice for victims.
Right.
It's a tough one.
It is. It really is.
Pauly's case also led to another change in California, right?
Yep. Something about police communication.
Yeah, like the way they communicate.
It spurred the expansion of California Highway Patrol's all points bulletin access to local authorities.
Okay, so before this, there were often delays in sharing information between different law enforcement agencies.
Right, which could really hinder investigations.
So after Pauly's case, the system was streamlined.
To ensure faster communication.
Which can be so crucial in those first few hours.
Absolutely, when every second counts.
Okay, Quickcasters, let's shift gears to a case that hit close to home for those in the entertainment industry and raised awareness about stalking.
The murder of Rebecca Schaefer back in 1989.
This is the case of the young actress who was gunned down by an obsessed fan.
Robert John Bardo.
Right. He had stalked her for years.
He even hired a private investigator to get her address.
This case showed how vulnerable celebrities can be.
For sure. I mean, they seem untouchable, but this case showed that's not always true.
Before this case, was stalking even taken seriously as a crime?
Not always, no. It was sometimes dismissed as just a nuisance.
So before Schaefer's murder, stalking laws were patchy and ineffective.
Yeah, pretty much.
But Schaefer's case changed all that.
Yes, it brought attention to the psychological trauma that stalking inflicts on victims.
And how it can lead to violence.
Exactly.
So how did Schaefer's case lead to changes in the law?
Well, her death was the push for stricter anti-stalking laws across the United States.
So they made it a crime to repeatedly harass or threaten someone.
Right. And they finally recognized stalking as a serious offense.
I mean, before these laws, someone could threaten someone over and over without consequence.
Crazy, right?
Schaefer's case also highlighted how stalkers could exploit personal information.
That's right.
Bardo got her address through the DMV.
Yep. And so her case led to the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, passed in 1994.
Which restricted access to personal information held by state DMVs.
Right. Making it a lot harder for stalkers to get that kind of information.
It's sad that it took a tragedy.
It is.
But Rebecca Schaefer's case definitely had a lasting impact on how we address stalking and protect victims.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've seen how true crime can lead to some positive changes.
Yep. Sometimes these cases show us the weak spots in our system.
Right. And then we can push for improvements that might not have happened otherwise.
Right. And our next case is a perfect example of that. We're going back to 1982 in West Des Moines, Iowa. 12-year-old Johnny Gosch disappeared while on his paper route.
The Johnny Gosch case, it's one of those mysteries that, it stays with you. And it's still unsolved.
Yeah, it really captivated the nation, not just because of the mystery surrounding his disappearance, but also because it exposed a flaw in how missing children cases were handled back then.
What was the flaw? Something about a waiting period.
Yeah. Many law enforcement agencies had this policy of waiting 72 hours before they could classify someone as missing.
72 hours, that's so long.
Yeah, it is. And it's just an eternity when a child is missing. Imagine the agony for his parents.
Having to wait days.
Right, before a full investigation could even begin. It's terrible.
It was. And tragically, in Johnny's case, it's possible that delay hurt the investigation.
So how did this case change how we approach missing children reports?
So the public outcry over this 72-hour waiting period led to a movement for immediate action in all missing children cases.
Okay, so no more waiting, no more just assuming that a child just wandered off.
Right.
They had to do something.
Yeah, and that led to the Johnny Gosch bill being passed.
And that mandated immediate response in missing persons reports involving children.
You got it.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, every second counts when a child is missing.
Absolutely, every second.
And this law recognizes how urgent these situations are.
It does. It's a powerful part of Johnny Gosch's legacy.
Even though we still don't know what happened to him.
We don't, but his case led to a crucial change in how we respond to missing children reports.
And speaking of laws that came about because of a missing child, our next case is, well, I'm sure a lot of parents are familiar with this one, Megan's Law. This one gives communities information about registered sex offenders
Living in their neighborhoods.
Right.
I think everyone's heard of it.
I think so.
It's all about awareness, right?
Yeah. Megan's Law comes from the murder of 7-year-old Megan Kanka in New Jersey back in 1994.
This is the case where she was lured into the home of a neighbor who had 2 prior convictions for assaulting children.
Yeah. But that information wasn't available to her family or the community.
So they didn't know he was living right there.
Right. And this is a critical gap in our system, right? Not having access to that information.
That could have saved her life.
Exactly. So after Megan's murder, there was this nationwide movement for more awareness about sex offenders living in their neighborhoods.
And that's what led to Megan's Law.
Yes. And it requires law enforcement agencies to make information about registered sex offenders public.
So names, addresses, photographs.
All of that.
So parents know if someone like that lives in their area. It's about giving people the information to protect themselves.
That's the idea.
Megan's Law has also been, it's been debated quite a bit.
It has.
Some people argue that it leads to people on the registry being stigmatized.
That's true.
There are valid concerns on both sides of that.
Yeah. Megan's Law is meant to protect communities.
Yeah.
But there are concerns about its effectiveness and the rights of individuals on the registry.
It's a hard balance to find.
It is.
Okay. So speaking of laws that everyone's heard of, I think pretty much everyone knows about the Miranda rights.
You have the right to remain silent.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't actually know where they come from.
That's true.
They came from one case.
One specific case, yes.
Yeah. What's the story there?
So the Miranda rights come from the 1963 case of Ernesto Miranda in Arizona. He was arrested for kidnapping and rape, and he confessed to the crimes.
But there was a problem with how they got the confession.
A big problem.
What happened?
He wasn't told about his rights.
So he didn't know he could remain silent.
Nope. He didn't know that anything he said could be used against him.
Or that he could have a lawyer.
He had no idea.
So he confessed without knowing any of that.
Yep.
Wow.
And so when his case went to trial, the Supreme Court ruled that suspects have to be informed of these rights before they're questioned by police.
And that led to the Miranda rights.
It did. It's amazing how well known those words are.
Right. Everyone's heard them.
It shows how big this case was. It changed how we view the rights of the accused.
And it makes sure confessions are obtained fairly.
Right. So even though Miranda was convicted later in a different trial,
Right.
his case led to a huge change in how we do arrests and interrogations.
Wow. The Miranda rights are now a standard part of police procedure.
They are. And it's a safeguard against forced confessions.
It's amazing how one case can change the whole legal system.
It really is. It shows how our legal system is always changing.
And that's a good thing, right?
It means it's trying to be fair.
Yeah, trying to ensure justice for everyone.
Right. And speaking of cases that made things better.
Okay, let's talk about a case that's connected to a system everyone knows about. The Amber Alert.
The Amber Alert. It saves so many kids.
Yeah. It all started with a really sad case back in 1996, the abduction and murder of 9-year-old Amber Hagerman.
In Arlington, Texas.
Right.
She was riding her bike just a few blocks from her home and was taken. Despite a huge search, her body was found a few days later.
This is just awful.
It is. And to this day, her killer is still unknown.
It's haunting. There were witnesses who saw her being taken, but they couldn't give enough information to help.
Right. That lack of communication that
Wow.
really fueled the need for a better system.
Yeah, to alert the public immediately.
Yeah, to get information out there quickly.
So how did Amber's case lead to the system being created?
People were just outraged and heartbroken. They wanted to prevent similar tragedies from happening.
Of course.
And so community activism, media attention, it all led to the Amber Alert system.
Okay, so how does it actually work? What makes it so effective?
So it's designed to get information about a missing child out fast.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Makes sense.
Law enforcement, broadcasters, media outlets. It goes out over radio, television, highway signs, text messages, social media, you name it.
Even those emergency alerts on our phones.
Exactly. You can't ignore an Amber Alert.
It gets your attention for sure.
It does. And that's the point, to get as many people looking as possible.
So it's more likely someone will see the child
Right.
and they'll be found safe.
That's the hope.
It's really amazing that something so tragic led to such a positive change.
It is. The power of wanting to protect children is incredible.
Well, Quickcasters, we're going to wrap up with a case that really changed how we think about child safety in public spaces.
This is the abduction and murder of 6-year-old Adam Walsh.
From a shopping mall in Florida.
Right back in 1981.
Yeah. This case scared parents all over the country.
I can only imagine.
It happened in broad daylight, in a place where people thought it was safe.
Right. In a mall where you take your kids. It was unimaginable.
And it led to a national movement to protect children in those kinds of places.
Exactly.
Adam's parents, John and Reeve Walsh, became advocates for missing and exploited children.
They did. They channeled their grief into something so positive.
Yeah, especially John Walsh. He became the face of missing children.
Oh, for sure. Especially with his show, America's Most Wanted.
Right. He wanted to find his son's killer, but he also wanted to keep other families from going through that.
Exactly. Adam's case was actually one of the main reasons behind the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
NCMEC. Yeah, they do such great work.
They prevent abductions, they help find missing kids, and they provide support to families.
And Adam's case also inspired Code Adam.
Oh yeah, that's the program they use in retail stores. When a child goes missing, they immediately start a search.
It's so simple, but it works.
It does. It's amazing how much Adam Walsh's case changed things.
He left a real legacy.
He did.
Well, Quickcasters, I think we've all learned a lot tonight about how even the most awful things
Can lead to change.
Yeah. It's about the human spirit.
It is.
Wanting to find meaning in tragedy.
And protect others.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Quickcasters, before we go, don't forget to check out the links below for more information about these cases. And please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for tuning in, and have a happy and safe Halloween.